Hi everyone, this is Caroline Speaks, The State of Our World on Tuesday, July 13, 2021. Well, what is it? Not good. Uh, so we still have to get this coronavirus under control, and we have to get everybody vaccinated. Now, what are the headlines? Suppression session, Texas Democrats flee to D.C. to block state Republican voting restriction bill. Controlling women with Roe v. Wade in peril, authors say move past court to save reproductive rights. And Fly So Far. New film tells stories of women in El Salvador jailed for decades under abortion ban. So if you women living in El Salvador and you are expecting a baby and your baby dies before the baby is born, like you have a miscarriage or the baby is born not alive, you could be jailed for homicide, killing your own child. Well, how unfair is that? And there's very little health care, and access to health care is not very good. And it's a very poor country. So, we have to do something about that. Protect the women. El Salvador is one of the three countries. El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras, the right-wing countries who we support, so we can get the resources of Latin America, will support you. Now, other headlines. Dozens killed, injured as fire tears through the coronavirus ward in Iraq. Oh, we really did a mess with Iraq. We destroyed the country. We took it apart. I think Bush the son started that war. Then, conflict, climate crisis, and coronavirus caused six-fold rise in people suffering famine all over the world. And, of course, we have a climate change deniers, and we have those who say the coronavirus is it's not real, it doesn't exist, it's no epidemic, and we don't have to take a vaccine. Now, the World Health Organization calls for extra booster shots while billions lack vaccine access. I totally agree. The drugs should be distributed worldwide. The FDA warns of very rare Guillain-Barré cases tied to Johnson & Johnson coronavirus vaccine. Well, I had that vaccine May 27th, and I'm doing okay. So far, so good. And now, suspects in the assassination of the Haitian president had ties to U.S. law enforcement. That's nice. Cuban president calls for end to blockade as Biden voices support for Cuban protesters. Yes, the people in Cuba are protesting because the U.S. has sanctions against Cuba for a long time and also a blockade. The U.S. supported Cuba when they had a dictator named Batista who let Americans own gambling casinos and sugar plantations. Then there's a revolution in 1956, and as I say, it's a communist country, but the people have done very well under that, and they've created some vaccines for the coronavirus. So why is it we are sanctioning Cuba and we don't sanction Israel for what they do to the Palestinians or Saudi Arabia for what they do to their people? Or how about Morocco and the Western Sahara? We give them the Western Sahara under Bush, because then they say they'll have good relations with Israel. So Israel has good relations with a lot of right-wing countries. Very, very bad situation. Now, South Africa has had protests and violence after the jailing of a former president. Press freedom groups demand the release of jailed Moroccan journalist. Hopefully that person will be freed. Protests erupt in Tbilisi, Georgia, over killing of journalists by homophobic mob. That's nice. We're all God's creatures. No one has control over who they are. They just arrived. They were born, and they do the best. Now, in Guatemala, protesters demand the resignation of the president over his mishandling of the coronavirus pandemic. I agree with that. And a federal judge blasts fantastical claims of voter fraud by pro-Trump attorneys, and that judge is either going to prevent them from practicing law in a certain area or uh, taking away their law license completely. I hope that's what happens. Now, in Chicago, 2,500 workers win a tentative contract ending an 18-day strike. And police arrest a man who planned to assume the Haitian presidency as more U.S. ties emerge. The coronavirus cases on the rise in the U.S. in 42 U.S. states, and the CDC urges schools to reopen in the fall. Thousands take to the streets of Cuba to protest the economic pandemic problems caused by the U.S. sanctions. And top U.S. general leaves post with Afghanistan as withdrawal nears an end. Withdraw, you're leaving this country to terrorists, the Taliban, who are going to abuse women again. Why did you go to Vietnam? Why did you go to Afghanistan? Same thing happened in Vietnam. You just abandoned the country, and then you abandoned Syria when they gave you help with the Kurds who were there, gave you help. And Bush's father did the same thing. He abandoned the Kurds in Iraq. So what is this? No one's going to trust the U.S. for anything, because all we do is we just hit and run. Well, okay, that's the way it is in the world. So, how about a little music now? Okay. There's another little song I wrote. Let's see how you like it. Life is worth living if you give it a chance. So don't give up and don't give into despair. There are so many creatures who God hath created who would love to have a chance at life. So that can be your purpose, to help them to live a good life. Life is very precious, so don't trifle with it, for once it is gone, you cannot get it back. Perhaps you need a new outlook on life or new friends. Life is worth living if you give it a chance, so don't give up and don't give into despair. Okay, I hope you liked that. Thank you for tuning in this evening of Tuesday, July 13th, 2021, for another meeting of Carolyn Speaks State of Our World. Hope you'll be back with us again tomorrow. And in the meantime, stay safe. Only what you have to practice social distancing and wear a mask when the vaccine is available for you. And it's safe for you to take it. I would take it. I had mine on May 27th, and I'm doing fine. I had the Johnson & Johnson one-dose virus. So stay safe, take care of your health and others. And remember, kindness goes a long way. Kindness goes a very long way. Thank you. Good night. See you tomorrow.